Somehow, Dune has done the impossible task of making the desert biome planet a cool thing in sci-fi again. Stop the presses. I find it incredible just how incredible Dune was. I mean, literally so much can go wrong with sci-fi of this scale, of this scope, of this level. You see it with Star Wars and with Star Trek and with whatever it was that was going on with Dane DeHaan in the 2010s, but I feel like people forget what big budget, grandiose sci-fi can really be. That is, until they watch Dune. And then they have that redefined all over again once they watch Dune Part Two. If the first entry into Denis's adaptation trilogy didn't do it, I think Dune Part Two redefines what blockbusters can and should be. Everything about this movie seems to be operating on another level entirely than anything in the past immeasurable amount of time. It feels hyperbolic to claim that this could be the next Star Wars, the new hope and empire of this generation all rolled into one, but at the same time, it really doesn't. You look online and it's all anyone's talking about. You sit in a packed theater and can just feel this self-sustaining building energy of an audience composed entirely of people who are hanging on every word and every frame. You feel the way that the immaculate sound design and divine original soundtrack managed to shake the entire theater. Sound brings to life and makes real these theoreticals that were barely even introduced to us moments ago. All of it is so immersive and enthralling and captivating, and it keeps us glued to the screen. How? Why? Is it some sort of divine blessing? Did Denis and Timothy and Zendaya and Rebecca and Austin and Hans and Javier and Skarsgård and Brolin and holy shit, this is the dream team of cast. Florence Pugh and Anya Taylor-Joy and Christopher Walken and Lea Seydoux and Dave Bautista and Roger Deakins all make some kind of deal with the devil to create this piece of cinematic scripture? Nay, I say. They built this forest by planting trees, one by one. Think of any good graph or visualization. They are defined by their scale, their frame of reference, as are films. A movie as monumental as Dune has every chance and every opportunity to fall flat on its face, to fly right past the event horizon of our empathy and become something that completely detaches from us. It can be a whirlwind of exposition and explosions and jargon and plot contrivances that exists purely to push forth spectacle. If one is not careful, they lose their tether to the audience. So, the script of Dune Part 2 takes every opportunity to explore that which tethers us to the conflict at large. It unwinds and examines the threads that make up our characters, lets them be, lets them live. It lets them exist and have humanity in quiet moments so that we can't help but root for them and fear for them and cheer for them during the loud ones. We watch Paul contemplate over and over, each moment of solitude a weight that slowly weighs down on him as he considers the possible future he's going to bring to pass. We get to see his despair and aversion to this path, his fear of it, so that eventually, when he does choose to follow it, we feel and believe in the gravity and severity of his actions, just as he does. This does not happen without allowing us to be alone with Paul's emotions and his inner turmoil. For that one word Paul speaks, silence, to be as deafening as it's meant to be when Paul says it, we need to really be listening. We need to have been listening. For us to feel with Chani when at the film's climax, we need to live in those tender moments with her and Paul before then. We need to believe the pain. To feel it, we need to know where it comes from. For us to fear for Paul's life, to know how deadly those blades of Feyd-Rautha can be, we need to see him use them. We need to understand just how cruel and sick he can be and what makes the depraved clock known as his mind tick. We need to know he was every bit as up to the task of conquering that little innocuous box as Paul was. To feel the triumph and grandiosity of Paul's riding the Shai-Hulud, we need to experience the times when he's an outsider. We need to experience all of his journey, not just the parts that make for exciting set pieces. We need to live with him in the quiet moments too. The vulnerable moments with Chani, the relief and joy he feels when he finds a tether to the life he thought destroyed in some footsteps that he recognizes. The little glories of those tiny victories against the Harkonnens, where he proves himself in battle and to the Fremen as a person. The pride he feels and acceptance he receives when he chooses his Fremen name. All of this works to build, to lay foundations, to construct framework. It builds, and with these small pieces it grows, until you're looking at a skyscraper of a film that couldn't have been constructed any other way. Piece by piece, moment by moment, character by character, emotional beat by emotional beat. Even with the smallest of things, this is true. the Pool of the Dead, the Grave of the Fremen. Only with Stilgar's gravity toward Lady Jessica earlier in the film can we really feel the weight of those artillery strikes later on. Only with the Harkonnens' denial of life in the south of Arrakis can we understand how arrogant and overconfident they truly are. Even on the world of Dune, this is true. Only through a tiny example, the perfect recollection of a Fremen's relative long since passed, can the people accept Paul to be the Messiah that they have wanted for so long. Outside of story, this monument to the ideas of film is constructed by thousands upon thousands of other rocks. A soundtrack that I've been listening to since I saw the film, shot composition and framing that managed to create instantly iconic moments and vistas and scenes, you name it. Any sequence from this movie has more visual ingenuity and creativity than most anything released this decade. Sound design that shakes the theater and gives you goosebumps. Whether it's the Bene Gesserit, the sandworms, or even the simplest of things like the legs of a spice extractor, it all feels so real. The sound works brilliantly with set design to create environments that suck us right in as if some sort of sandworm. And then we're standing alongside this phenomenal ensemble of actors and actresses. They inhabit these characters who are dressed to perfection, each world and culture of this universe represented so distinctly, their attire telling the story of a people all their own. Yet somehow these contrasting wardrobes of the worlds collide and mesh into something that all feels cohesive in the grand picture before us. Really and truly, I don't think there's much for me to even criticize in regards to Dune Part 2, other than the fact that I wish it was longer. But perhaps the beauty in these things is that they are not forever, and should be appreciated while they're there. Savor what is given, much like water on a desert planet. I loved Dune Part 2. I cannot recommend it enough, and I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. See it on the biggest screen possible, see it in the loudest theater possible, but above all else, just see it. Until next time.